Hello! Today we will be creating this Wonky Winter Village in Procreate. I'll walk you through it step by step. It's a pretty long one, but it's really fun. So if you are ready, we will go ahead and get started. First things first, I do have the color palette we will be using linked in the description below. All you need to do is download it and then open it up in Procreate, and it'll automatically pop into your color palette section. And other than that, all of the brushes we will be using are standard Procreate brushes. So pause the video for a moment to grab the color palette and then come on back and we will get to it. So to get started, my canvas dimensions are set to 3840 by 4800 and 240 dpi. And then we are first going to do our background. So again, these are the colors that should have came in with the color palette. I have them on 3 different lines here, kind of split up by how we're going to use them. So on this first layer, layer 1, we are going to grab our very first color in the color palette. It's like a dark bluish gray, and then drag it and drop it onto the entire screen so that it fills it. While staying on that same layer, we are going to grab our second color in the color palette and then go into our brushes and go into airbrushes and find hard airbrush. And then we are going to draw a horizontal line across the screen. So draw a line, hold your pen down at the end, and then tap to the screen to make it perfectly horizontal. And then drag and drop that color below it to fill the rest of the screen. And then we're going to go up to this little wand, click Gaussian Blur, and then click Layer. And then drag your pencil across the screen till it says about 50% at the top. And that is going to be our little background. Next, add a new layer on top of that one. And then go back into your color palette, and we are going to grab this first one on the second row. It's like a gray color. And then on the second layer, with the same hard airbrush, we are going to start kind of drawing the base for our houses. But first, we actually want to set up our canvas with a grid so that we can space out our houses properly. So click on the gear icon up here, click Drawing Guide, turn it on, and then click Edit Drawing Guide right below that. It automatically pops up this 2D grid, and we just want to use this to drag the size all the way to the right until you can see 4 squares across your canvas. So that is how we will space out our houses. There will be 4 of them. So that is it for setting that up. So we're still on layer 2. We have our gray, first gray here on the second row of colors, and we have our hard airbrush again, and it's at about 15% just like it was before. So the first thing we're going to do is draw a line straight across the canvas right in the middle on that part of the grid. And draw the line, hold it down, click on the screen so it turns horizontal, and then fill below it. Then we're going to start drawing the peaks of our houses. So I'm starting with this third one because I already know that I want it to be the biggest one. So we're going to draw a line, hold it down, and on one side, and then we're going to do the same on the other. It doesn't really matter where they're ending. They're supposed to be kind of wonky anyway, so it doesn't have to be perfect. So fill that in so that we have one big shape, and then we're going to do the same with the other 3 peaks. So this one I'm going to make like a little taller and skinnier, and then fill that one in as well. Let's see, the second one here we'll make a little shorter and fatter. So just draw the one line, the other line, fill that in, and then this first one we'll make tall and skinny again. So that is the base shape to our houses. So next we're going to add a layer. We are going to grab this 4th gray color here on the second row. And then we are going to draw a little line straight across, kind of maybe a quarter of the way up. And then we are going to fill that below, and that is like the little sidewalk in front of our houses. So another new layer, and we're going to grab the second color on the second row. It's a darker gray, And we're just going to kind of start adding some details to our houses here. So the first thing I want to do is draw a line, again, straight across the middle, make it perfectly straight, and then another one right below it. And then we're going to fill it in between. And this is just going to kind of be like the trim to our houses, I would say. So then we want to do the same thing on the peaks, and keep in mind that you want some in front of the others. So the first one we're going to do is this third one because I want it to be more in the front. So I'm going to draw, you know, the 2 lines on one side, 2 lines on the other. And then we're going to fill it in so that it's like one big trim. And again, they don't have to be perfect. That's kind of the whole point of this. So they can be a little, you know, thinner here, thicker there. Doesn't really matter. We're going to do the same thing on the other peaks. And again, I'm going to do this first one before I do the second one because I want it to be more in front. So the second one is going to be pretty much completely behind, you know, both the first and the third one. And then we will do this one last, and we'll just put the trim pieces behind the other one so that they connect on the sides. Awesome, there we go. So now we are going to add a new layer, and we are going to grab this very last color in the second row. It's almost black, and we're actually going to move the layer that we just created under the sidewalk layer. So then we're going to draw doors. So there will be 4 doors. We're going to just kind of draw a shape. Hold your pencil down at the end and let it kind of snap. And then draw a line across the bottom to close the shape and then fill it in. So we're going to do this for each one. You know, again, they can be kind of wonky. You don't want it to be a perfect rectangle, and make them all a little different than the others. So this one will make a little taller and skinnier. And draw the bottom again, connect it, and fill it in. And this one will make a little thicker. Draw the bottom again, connect it, and fill it in. And those are our 4 doors. They're all a little different. Okay, so we are going to stay on the same layer as our doors, and we are going to grab this next gray color here, the second one on the second row that we used for the trim on our house. We're going to use that same color, the hard airbrush still, and we're just going to draw some windows above our doors first. So same thing, we just want to make like a 4-sided shape, and then hold your pen down at the end so that the lines all snap, and they can all be a little different. They're not supposed to be perfectly straight. You just want them above the door. We'll do one for each one. You know, we'll make this one a little bit bigger because the door is bigger and the peak is bigger. This one will make a little smaller. And the last one. So we're going to add some windows above as well. So just kind of inside the peaks. And again, this one will make tall and skinny. This one, I think we'll actually do 2 on it since it's kind of the main part of the building. We'll make this one below. And then we'll make another one above it, pretty small. Then this one, since this one's kind of behind, we'll make the window kind of link in with the trim there as if it's kind of behind. And then this one, we'll probably do another tall and skinny one so it kind of fills up the space here. Move it over a little so it's a little more centered. Okay, so those are our windows. So next we're going to add the light inside the windows. So what we're going to do is on our layers, we're going to add a new layer above. And we're going to grab this first orange color on the third row. It's kind of a medium yellowish orange color. We're using the same brushes that we have been this whole time. And again, we're on that layer above the windows. So we are just going to start with the doors. And we'll draw another little rectangle inside the door, kind of towards the top half of the door. Again, the same thing that we've been doing this whole time, just a four-sided shape. It doesn't have to be perfect. You want it to kind of be, you know, a little different than the door even, so that, you know, the spaces along the sides aren't even exactly the same. And then you'll just fill in the shapes as you go. And that's the last door. So then we're going to do a similar thing to the windows, but this time I do kind of want to follow the shape of the window a little more so that it looks more like, you know, there's edges on the window. So we're going to kind of make it match a little bit, but since the windows are already like a wonky shape, it goes along with everything. Just fill them in as you go. And we'll do the rest on all of them, including the ones above. Okay, and then this is the last one. We'll fill this in. Okay, so those are all done. Now we're going to create some panes on the windows. So we're actually going to add a new layer above the yellow layer that we just created. Click on the layer and then click clipping mask. And then we're going to select this medium gray color again that we used for the windows. And we're just going to go through the same brush that we've been using this whole time, and we're just going to draw lines through the windows to create panes. Again, they're going to be a little wonky, make some of them, you know, in different directions, but always hold down your brush at the end so that you get a nice straight line. And we're going to kind of vary between the windows too. This one we'll just do 2 down the middle, 2 across, maybe 3 across, kind of varying window by window so they're all unique. We're going to do the same thing for these ones down below. They're a little smaller, so this time we'll just do like 2 down, 1 across here. Maybe the same thing on this one. This one's bigger, so we'll probably do a few more. the last one's pretty small also, so we'll do the same as the first two. Okay, so then we're going to do the same thing on the doors. So we're just going to actually grab this black color again. It's on your color palette if you want to grab it. Otherwise, you can just hold your finger down on the door and it'll grab the color with a color dropper. But we're just going to do the same thing. And again, kind of varies window by window. This one's bigger, so we'll do a little bit more. And then this one's smaller again. Just kind of whatever you think to fill them out. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So now we're going to add some dimension to our windows to kind of give a little more life to them. So go into the layer menu, click on the main yellow layer that we used before, and then click the plus button to add a new layer in between that and the clipping mask that we were just working on. It automatically makes this layer a clipping mask, but we do want it below the panes that we just drew. Go back into the color palette and select this lighter yellow color, the second yellow color on the last row. And we're actually going to change our brush. So go into the brush menu, click on charcoals, and we're going to use this burnt tree brush. This is one of my favorite texture brushes. And we're going to change the size. Let's do about 50%. And we're just going to draw some texture on top of the yellow. So we're going to draw just a little brush strokes in the bottom right side of each of the windows. This kind of is almost like if a fire was burning, that's where the light would be coming from. So we're just going to add some dimension there. We're going to do it on all of the windows. So then we're going to add another one, select the darker yellow from the color palette, and we're just going to do it on the same layer but on the opposite sides of the window, so the upper left. And this just makes it nice and dimensional with all three of our yellow colors. And again, just do it to every single one of the windows. Okay, so now we are going to add some ledges to our windows, to some of them, just for the snow to sit on. So go back into your layer menu, and we just need a new layer. You know, we have our windows on this layer here, but it doesn't really matter. We'll add them on top of this layer here because we do want them to be above the yellow stuff that we drew. So we are going to use the color dropper to select this medium gray color that we used for the windows originally, or you can find it in the color palette. Go back to our hard airbrush again, and we are just going to do a similar thing that we did when we originally drew the windows, where we draw a four-sided shape and then let it snap for perfectly straight lines. And we're just going to do it on the bottom and tops of these windows here above the doors. Every once in a while, like this, it'll try to recognize it as an oval, and if you just go into the top menu and click edit shape, it usually will give you the option for a quadrilateral, which is a four-sided shape, and that's the one that we want. Not a rectangle. If it gives you that option, rectangle will make it perfect, and we don't want that. Okay, that was the last one. So I just wanted to do it on these ones above the doors. The ones on top I don't think would look good with it. So now we're going to do something really fun, and we're going to add some definition to the house structure. So back on this original layer where we built our gray part of our house, the very first thing that we did, not the trim one, but the full gray one, we are going to add a layer above that and do a clipping mask. Same hard airbrush that we've been using, and then the first color that we're going to use is this medium gray color, the third one on the second row. What we're going to do is just kind of add some brick-like shapes. So similarly to what we just did, we're going to just draw a bunch of four-sided shapes, let them snap so that the lines are perfect, and fill them in. I'm just kind of, you know, drawing some, and then I'll fill in like 4 at a time. But we're just going to draw them in between the doors and the windows all over the whole facade of the building. Some of them we can make a little smaller, some bigger, some can go off the edge or, you know, under a door. Just kind of mix it up to just make it look pretty realistic. Another thing to mention is that we are going to be going in again with a lighter color after this, so you do want to leave quite a bit of space. You don't want it super filled out with this darker gray. So we're just going to leave, you know, a good amount of room in between all of the little sections that we do. Okay, so that looks pretty good for the bottom. Just kind of fill it in if you think that some spots look a little too sparse. And then we are going to move on to the top, and we're just going to do the exact same thing. There isn't quite as much room to be filled up here, but we'll just add a few to make it look good. Okay, and then guess what we're going to do next? We're going to do the same exact thing with a lighter color now. So this really light gray, it's the fourth one on the second row. And we're going to just kind of fill in any spots that we left open or that have any extra room, just to really give it, again, more definition, really fill out the space, add some texture and, you know, just variety to it. The next thing that we want to do is we are actually going to start adding some snow. So we want to add a new layer on top of all of our layers. So at the very top, add a new layer. We're going to select this white color from the third row, the very first one. It's not pure white, but it's close. Same hard airbrush that we've been using. We're going to keep it at the same, 15 to 20% that we've had it on. And we are going to start with this main ridge that goes all the way across. So we're just going to draw a line, and I know this whole time I've been telling you to hold the pencil down and make it snap, but we are not going to this time because snow isn't perfect. So we're going to draw a line, make it, pretty smooth, but it should not be perfect at all. We want it kind of wonky, and then we're going to draw another line on top and then fill in the in-between so it just looks like a nice layer of mounded snow. Then we're going to kind of maybe add some more humps as we go, just to kind of make it look more natural and fill it out a little more. Okay, we're also going to add some snow to the rooftop. So a similar thing, we're going to follow the line of the rooftop, but not perfect. And then we're going to draw another line on top of it and then fill in the in-between so that it's kind of wavy. And then just kind of, connect it at the bottom here, make it a little smoother where the snow would connect because it would kind of pile up right there. And we're just going to do that same thing. Again, keep in mind which peaks you put in front of others. So for example, this one, the snow will obviously go in front of this one next to it. You should just be able to follow the roof lines that you made before in order to keep that going. So we'll just do that for all of these. And then again, just kind of create like some little pockets in here where the rooftops kind of meet, where the snow would build up. And then just keep going as you go through and make, some different variances, adding little bits here, making some parts thicker, so it looks really natural. You just kind of want to make sure that you can still see part of the roof line that we drew earlier with that darker gray color, but you don't want to leave space in between the rooftop and the snow. So that's why we made those thicker lines earlier when we created the rooftops, so that the snow could sit on them, but we wouldn't cover them up completely. Okay, that looks good for that. And the last place that we want the snow to collect is on these ledges that we drew on these windows down here. So we're just going to do the same exact thing on both the top and bottom ledge of the windows. We're just going to draw a little mound of snow, not quite towards the edges because it wouldn't stay there, but almost right to them. So same thing, wavy line on the bottom, wavy line on the top, fill it in. It shouldn't be too perfect. Some parts should be thicker, some thinner. And then we're going to do the same thing on the bottom ledges of these windows because the snow would pile up there too. Okay, awesome. And the last place that the snow would pile up is obviously the ground. So we're going to draw a nice line right in front of all the doors, cover up part of the sidewalk, but then we're also going to cover up, part of in front of the doors. And one thing that I try to do here is make the parts that are in between the doors a little bit thicker, because obviously when you walk to your door or you shovel in front of it, it's going to be lower there where you're walking in, but then it might pile up a little higher on the sides of your door. And since it's on the ground, I made it a little more wobbly and moundy than it is on the rooftop. And again, just fill it all in. Maybe add a little more humps here and there. I'm going to smooth some of it out if it needs to be. And then lastly, with this step, we are going to add some more snow in front of the doors and like on the sidewalk. So again, mostly in between the doors, since that's the part that wouldn't be shoveled or something. We're just going to take our brush and go back and forth and just kind of make it look like scattered snow in between these doorways on the sidewalk. We're not going to go all the way down. Again, maybe like a little thicker towards the main part of the snow that we just created and thinner as it gets closer to the edge of the canvas. But also just make it really wonky because that is how it naturally would be. So thicker in some areas, thinner in some. And then on top of that, to make it look more natural, we'll do it on the edges of the canvas as to where another doorway would be or another part of the sidewalk. So we'll do it on each side. Okay, there. So now we're going to add just a little more fun and add some icicles. So we'll just keep on the same layer that we are with the same brush and everything, same color, all that. But now that we have all that laid out, we're just going to go through and add some little icicles. So just kind of on the rooftop, some longer, some skinnier, just like we have been. Just kind of draw like little tiny pointy triangles and then fill them in. Spread them out, put some closer together, some further apart. So besides the rooftop, I also wanted to put some on the windowsills. So we'll add some there next. And we're only really going to do it for the bottom parts of these windows. Then we will move on to the rooftops. So these are a little trickier because the rooftops are so steep. and you don't want to make your icicles like stick out left and right when you go, so you kind of have to draw them really close to the rooftop that already exists, but try to make them as up and down as you can. But again, just varying in size and spacing. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now the last thing that we're going to do is add a new layer on top of this one. We're going to use the same white color, and we're going to switch back to that burnt tree brush and leave it at the size that it was on before, and we're just going to lightly, very lightly run the brush horizontally down where we drew the snow on the sidewalk. And this will just kind of make it look like the snow has, you know, been walked on and shoveled, but just very lightly. If you do it too hard, it'll get a little too thick. Okay, and then for the last part of our snow here, we'll add another new layer on top, same white color, and then go into your brushes and click on elements, and then there is one called, and we're gonna put it at the very max size and just drag it all the way across the screen without lifting your pen up. And it makes this beautiful effect. Awesome. Okay, and then the very last step is we are going to create some little lamps. So go back to your snow layer, or just add a new layer on top, but then we're actually going to drag it below our drizzling snow that we just made so that the snow is in front of it. But go back to your hard airbrush again, and we are going to select the black color from the door. And we are going to draw a triangle and then touch your finger on the screen so that it becomes a perfect triangle. Flip it around so that it's facing with the pointy part up, and then fill it in. And then just draw a little rectangle on top for kind of where it would mount to the wall. Fill that in. Again, that one doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, and then we're just going to kind of move it up here above where the doors would be, and in between them. And then we're going to add another new layer underneath the black one that we just made, and then go back into your color palette and select the lightest yellow color on the last row there, and same brush, and we're just going to draw another triangle shape. And again, this one's harder to snap, but just kind of adjust it so that it looks pretty straight. And it kind of comes out from under the lamp head. And then connect it if it's not connected, and then fill it in. Okay, and then that layer, click on the little N and drag the opacity down to about 50%, 40%, somewhere in there. Click on the wand icon and then click Gaussian blur, click layer, and then drag it to about 10%. Just so it has a little blurring at the edges, kind of like a light naturally would. And then add a new layer on top of that layer. Go back into your brushes and click the luminance brush, and the top one is called and those 3 layers make up our lamp. So we are gonna merge them by dragging them all together and then make a duplicate. So we're gonna have one in between the first and second door, and then one in between the third and fourth door. We don't want to have one in between every single door. That would be a little too hectic. So I think this looks good. And that is it for our painting today. I actually lied when I said that that was going to be our last step, because there is one more. We're going to go back into our layers, select the layer of our snow, put a new layer on top, turn that into a clipping mask, and then on the color palette, grab this second color next to the white that we used. It's a very, very light gray. And then go back into our brushes and grab the burnt tree brush again. We're going to lower the size down to about 10%. And then what we're going to do is add some shadows to all of the snow on the underside. So just go through with your brush and make some shadows on the underside of the snow and the icicles. We are going to do the same thing on the roof line here, and then we'll do the windows next as well. And lastly, we're going to do the part down below, the snow on the sidewalk. This part's a little more difficult because there really isn't a bottom and a top, so I'm just adding some shadows throughout the snow on the sidewalk to just give it some more definition and texture. And that's it. I hope you had fun. If you want to see more tutorials, subscribe to my channel. I'm planning on putting one out every single week. And then if you want to share your picture on Instagram, please do so and tag me in it so that I can see how yours turned out. While you're at it, give me a follow on Instagram and see what I'm working on next. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, I just wanted to mention that this will also be available in my shop, and I will link it down below.